When you were living in Pennington, Mr. Menendez, were you ever forced to eat garbage?
Yes.
And who forced you to do that?
My father.
Your Honor, it's vague as to what they mean by garbage. It's apparently bad because she was very poor.
All right, why don't you specify what you're referring to?
Okay. You heard your brother testify that there was a rule in the house that if you didn't finish your meal, you had to eat it the next meal?
Yes.
And were you subjected to that rule more than he was?
Yes.
Who was the pickier eater, you or your brother?
I was.
And were there occasions when you would sit at the table for quite a long time?
Yes.
And were there any occasions when you tried to throw the food away?
Yes.
And on any of those occasions, did you throw the food away?
Yes.
And what happened after you threw the food away?
My father, I remember one time my father went to the bathroom and I couldn't finish the string beans or the meat, and I threw it in the garbage, and when he came back, he saw my plate was empty, so he went to the garbage and he found it in there.
And were you forced to eat it?
Yes.
And was your mother present?
Yes.
You testified before that you had nightmares when you were a child, sometimes for 2-3 months in a row. Is that right?
Yes.
And do you recall any times when you would leave, do you recall leaving your bed, like sleepwalking?
Yeah, I had a strange thing with sleepwalking. Sometimes I'd be aware of it, and sometimes I wouldn't.
Did your mother have a particular way in which she would arouse you or wake you from your nightmares?
Yes.
And what was that method?
She'd put me in the bathtub underneath the cold water.
And how would you feel it when she was putting you in the bathtub?
I thought she was part of the nightmares that I was having, and I thought she was one of the monsters that was getting me, and I would fight against her, and so she'd have to drag me to the bathtub.
What was your first waking awareness when this would happen?
Being in the bathtub with the cold water.
So you'd be clothed or naked or what?
I would be in my underwear and my t-shirt.
In a tub of cold water?
Yes.
Do you recall an occasion when you did things around the house in an effort to get your mother to smile that didn't work out quite right?
Yes.
And how old were you on this particular occasion?
I was playing tennis. I believe I was under 13.
Okay, you were over 11 and under 13?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do on that occasion?
I was baking a cake for her.
Okay, and what happened?
And I did something wrong in making the cake. I either turned up the temperature too much or put in the wrong ingredient or something, and the cake sort of went all over the oven. It spilled out and did a lot of things.
Okay, and what happened?
And I noticed this right before she got home with Lyle, and she came in the house, and I was trying to clean up the mess that I had made in the oven, and she saw it, and she got extremely upset.
Okay, and after she got extremely upset, what, if anything, did she do?
She saw what I did, and she started screaming, and she grabbed part of the cake and started throwing it at me, and I ran up to my room, and she chased me up there.
Was your mother ever physical with you? Did she ever hit you or slap you or hurt you?
Yes.
And what were some of the things she would hit you for?
I guess when I made her very angry.
Okay.
These type of things that I screwed up on. If I didn't vacuum the floor right, she wouldn't come over and hit me in the face. She would just pound on my chest or slap me if I wasn't doing my homework right, or not my homework, my testing. That's when she would get really angry for that as well. Just different things like that.
Mr. Menendez, did you bite your nails?
Yes.
Did you bite your nails when you were a child?
Yes.
And do you have recollections of riding in a car with your mother and biting your nails?
Yes.
And what would your mother do when you bit your nails?
She would, I would be biting my nails either next to her on the seat or in the back seat, and she'd hit her hand against my face where my hand was. She'd hit my hand in my face.
She'd smack you?
Yes.
And what would you do after she smacked you?
I would put my hand down, and I had the urge to bite my fingernails, and I couldn't stop, and so I would sort of gradually put my hand back up to my face, and she'd hit me again.
Okay, so smacking you didn't stop you from biting your nails?
No.
But would she continue to smack you even if you kept putting your hand back?
Eventually, if I kept putting my hand back up, she'd get too frustrated and keep hitting me, and I'd turn my back, and she'd start pounding on my back.
Now, did your father do a similar thing with respect to your nail biting?
Yes.
Did your father bite his nails?
Yes.
Anybody smack him in the face for doing it?
No, he just didn't want me to bite my fingernails.
Now, you mentioned at one point in your testimony that your mother would make you take the blame for things. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Is there an incident that you remember like that involving tennis rackets?
Yes.
Okay. Now, could you tell us about that incident? First of all, how old were you when this particular incident occurred?
I believe I was 12.
Okay.
And she had forgotten my tennis rackets. We were on the way to a tennis tournament. It was a Friday afternoon because it was the first round. It was right after school. And I had to obviously have my tennis rackets. But what she'd do is she'd pick me up from school with my tennis clothes, if I wasn't wearing them that day, and my tennis rackets. And on the way there, I noticed that she had forgotten the tennis rackets.
What were you doing on the way there?
I was changing, I believe.
In the car?
Yes.
And you noticed that your tennis rackets weren't there?
Yes, I looked in the back where they usually were to make sure she had the right rackets and this and that, and there were no rackets.
And what did that mean to you?
That meant that I was going to probably have to borrow somebody else's racket. I said,
what did that mean to you?
It meant I was probably going to lose.
Why?
Because tennis rackets are very specialized, and if you don't have your own strung at the right tension and the right size and the right grip, you're not going to play nearly as well.
And what did it mean to you that you knew in advance or thought in advance that you were going to lose? What consequences, if any, would that have for you?
Well, if I lost first round in the Middle States tournaments, I was going to be punished by Dad, and I was afraid of that.
Okay. So when you noticed that the rackets were missing, what, if anything, happened?
I asked Mom where the tennis rackets were. I said, Mom, where are the tennis rackets? And she said, oh, aren't they back there? And I said, no, they're not back here. And she says, well, you're just going to have to borrow a racket when you get there.
Okay. And what happened?
I lost.
Did you borrow a racket when you got there?
Yes.
And you lost?
Yes.
And was there a conversation with your mother in the car on the way home?
Yeah, I wanted to know what we were going to say to Dad, because I believe I was seeded number 2 in this tournament. I was one of the top 4, and I lost in the first round. And I wanted to know what we were going to say to Dad, because...
Well, what do you mean? Why wasn't Dad just going to be told your mother forgot the rackets and you couldn't win playing with a different racket?
I was going to find out if that's what was going to be said. I was asking Mom, what are we going to say, Dad? What are we going to tell Dad happened? She said, well, you're just going to have to say you forgot the rackets. There's nothing else we can say. I couldn't just tell him that I played badly. There had to be a reason why I lost to this unranked kid.
Well, was it because you played badly, or was it because you didn't have your rackets?
Well, I played badly because I didn't have my rackets. And so I was asking her, what are we going to do? And she said, you're just going to have to say you left them at school.
She didn't say, I'll say I forgot them.
Well, I asked I said, Dad's not going to be very happy that I left my rackets at school. And she got really angry. She was angry that I lost, and she got really angry. She said, well, we're not going to say that I left my rackets.
We're not going to say what, you popped?
She said that she wasn't going to say that I definitely couldn't say that she had left her rackets at home, because Dad was going to be even less happy with her than angry with me.
Is that what she said?
Yes.
What did you expect your father to do if he heard that you lost the first round of this tournament because you had left your rackets at school?
Objection, Your Honor. Can we get a time frame?
You did.
I was 12.
What did you expect your father to do?
I thought he was going to use the belt.
And do what with it?
And hit me.
So, did you say to your mother, but Mother, if you tell Dad that I lost the rackets, he's going to beat me with the belt? Did you say that to her?
No, definitely not.
Why didn't you say that to her?
Because Mom was the one that usually told on me anyway when bad things happened so that she wouldn't get punished. And I definitely wasn't going to say, Mom, if you do this, Dad's going to use the belt on me, because she'd go right home and say that I told her that to Dad.
I don't understand. She'd go right home and tell Dad what?
That I told her that.
That you complained about his beating you?
Yes. And that you just didn't do.
Was there another incident with your father that involved some plate glass doors?
Yes.
And how did that, what was that about?
Dad was again angry at me because I wasn't playing well on the tennis court, and he was over my shoulder yelling at me in my ear, and I just said, all right, and he just, it's not something you're supposed to do, and he just grabbed me and slammed me into the glass.
And what happened?
The glass shattered, and he just grabbed me again and slammed me through it all the way until the glass broke and I fell on my butt.
Was your mother home when this happened?
She was in the kitchen.
And did she respond to it?
At first she jumped up, not knowing what happened, and then she saw it was just Dad throwing me through the glass, so she didn't say anything.
And was the glass cleaned up?
Yes, I did that.
And did someone order you to clean it up, or did you just...
Dad told Mom to tell me to clean up the glass.
And did that happen?
Yes.
Was Lyle there on that occasion?
I don't remember Lyle being there.